Everyone, Natu Myers here again, back with another video. And in this video, I'm here to just talk about why, when building relationships with people to assist you in closing your transactions, 10 million and above especially, why it's important to balance building warm relationships and deep relationships while also building cold relationships as well. And so, yeah, you probably may be wondering, what do I mean by cold relationships and all that? What am I really talking about? Yeah, so basically, there are a few conundrums, right? If you're working on raising capital and closing deals with people, you have to, one thing that I've seen that actually works in actually closing the transactions is having very few extremely high quality relationships with people who can, who are reliable, people who have relationships with the either equity or debt investors for large deal sizes. And those introductions, I mean, obviously people, it's not emotion only, but these people are very scientific. But knowing what people want and knowing how to get in touch with the right people, the people who don't waste your time, the people who are real and who actually can, perform at a high caliber. It's really hard to find those people if you're just starting out in raising capital or in mergers and acquisitions or in consulting or investment banking, anything like that. Because there's just a lot of noise out there, except for the large firms. So besides, when it comes to the large firms, people know what to do. The JPs, the Morgan Stanleys and all that, people know what to do. But when it comes to the small guys, there is a big void and there's a lot of opportunity, but there's a lot of noise as well. So when it comes to raising capital for lower middle market deals, 10 million to maybe 100 million, there are a few things that work. One is building extremely good, strong relationships with people who are key in private equity firms, people who are in family offices, people who are in investment banks that that perform. Because anyone can call themselves a private equity firm, anyone can call themselves an investment bank, anyone can call themselves any of these things. But the people that actually perform, are few and far in between. So there are different strategies to get in touch with them. And one is to just make sure you build a deep relationship with them, help them out, help people out who are looking to get into positions of authority in family offices, in investment banks, in private equity firms. Get in touch with these people and build relationships with these people. Because when it comes time for you to actually call on them, then they'll be around. And when they're around, then they can actually consummate your deal quicker without going through the normal barriers that all these companies put up, especially if they don't know you. And you would also have some insights into how these companies operate, because if you actually help somebody get to the point where they're working at a mid-market investment bank that actually can close deals for a particular type of deal, or private equity firm or family office, then they'll be inclined to help you as well. So just help people and build these long relationships with them so that the deals can move quickly. So that's one. Two is, although, you build these relationships, the problem is not depending on too few people, right? So I personally was in a situation where, and this was a few years back, where I had to learn, get some of the securities licenses and learn about just some of the basics just to get myself exposed and get myself trained up. And in getting myself trained up and learning the basics, I also had to, some of it is trial by fire, because I needed to have exclusive relationships with people for a temporary period of time. However, if you get if you depend on too few people who are at these positions of power, then then you're not really running a business. You're not really free. You're just chained down, and you're also dependent on too few parties to consummate a deal. So those are the dangers. So what is really the solution? The solution is to have a process to turn people who you don't know to people you do know, because the amount of relationships we can have is limited. There's something called Dunbar's limits, which dictates it's about 150. So human beings we can't have any significance or meaningful relationship with more than 150 people at the same time. And so that's something, that limit is known as Dunbar's limit. And it's a psychological limit that's, is imposed by people who worked at, people who, it's funny, people who conduct data analysis on terrorists, for example. They see that how come the terrorist clusters are only 150? Part of it is because of these limitations that people can have with their associations. Why is it that when Netflix has, like Netflix, Google, Apple, all these big companies, why is it that the hierarchies, they don't go the branches of the hierarchies and the people in the company, they don't go greater than 100 or so? Well, part of it may be because Dunbar's limit. Why is it that even Genghis Khan, ancient world domination, why is it that they had limitations to the people that, similar thing, 10 people underneath, 10 people underneath, and then 100 people underneath each group, and 100 people underneath the groups that have 100 people. And this was the architecture of an army and corporations. So it's really hard for us to have a deep relationship with too many people. So when you fill up those people that, and even worse, the first 3 people, according to Dunbar's limit and some of the psychology, and you can read some literature after, is that the first 3 people you have a relationship with are the deepest. The next 9 are one level down, and then the next 27 are one level down. And so it's like it multiplies by 3 every time. And, you have to value those relationships, and it's just Pareto distribution, right? And so the point is, really to just hone down and having extremely good relationships with very few people, and then filling up that pipeline as aggressively as possible, because we know that we can't depend on too few people, and we have a limitation to how many people we can keep track of at the same time. So the solution is to have a process to take people who you don't know into people who you're building relationships with, into people you do know deeply. And you always have to consistently reach out to people consistently and maniacally. You have to maniacally reach out to these people who you don't know, who may have a mandate, who may have a mandate, and even those who don't, just so you can turn those people from people who you don't know into people who you're discussing with, into people who are getting warmed up, into people who you're consummating transactions with on a quarterly basis. And there's no easy answer, because those people who you're looking at making cold relationships with, they have relationships with people too, but you don't want to just do the warm in the traditional way. We live in the information age where we can get access to more people, and we want to use both ways so that we can scale our relationships, and we can also build teams for other people to manage those relationships, knowing what likes what type of transaction, because that's critical. With software platforms, things like that, some of it is changing. Things are becoming more quantitative, but it's temporary. Really, human beings are at the crux of everything, and technology is only scaling things that are bound by human limitation, and augmenting them. So, that's why Razors.com, we have systems to reach out to people cold. We have we have introductions that we make to associates and our correspondent investment banks who are FINRA registered, family offices who we have JVs with, and so on, taking advantage of the warm way and taking advantage of the cold way as well. And when you combine both, and you always, you're always building your pipeline consistently, then you will always win in the long term, one way or another, because you have an quote-unquote anti-fragile architecture where you're not dependent on too few people. You know the limitations that you have as a person in your relationships and their relationships, and then you always have some on the in the back burner that are being built as the time goes along. And so with this, build warm relationships and cold relationships at the same time, and turn one into warm, but understand the limitations of both, and learn how to play and mix and match with both, while others are just bound to one. So I thank you for watching this video. If you would like to learn more about the process when it comes to Razors.com and how we help people raise 10 million plus, head to Razors.com and we'll make it happen.